Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast this week in America. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. One of our favorite and most popular guests is back to share his incredible journey through several lifetimes, as far back as 1,000,000 years, as blunders, triumphs, as many worlds and places where those amazing experiences took place. As you might remember, born in 1957, Robert experienced several sleep-time visits to other worlds as a child, witnessed countless alien craft. He's told the story many times here on This Week in America. Now, these experiences continue to date in both wake and sleep states. He studied concert piano beginning at age 3, but changed his calling to science following his visionary experiences. The book is a culmination of these experiences shared with the world for the first time. It's the Legacy series. Robert spent 40 years studying science, religion, science of life, presented by Dr. Ernest Norman, validating sightings that started in 1962, expanding into visions on July 13, 1973. He proceeded to confirm his experiences with other established sources, and the book series is the culmination of such visionary and confirmation efforts written in novel form. It's the Legacy series. Back with us, Robert Maxxim, and we have so many questions, Robert, on the program today, generated from the last couple of visits. Thank you so much for being with us.
Wonderful. Great to be here. Thanks, Rick.
You know, I mentioned the questions, and you can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and the comment section, you can ask a question for Robert, and we'll get it to him and answer it on a program. Or you can go to Robert's website, which is rgaetan, GAETAN.com, and do the same and leave a question there. We have so many. Let's get started. First question from a listener that asked, do past lives matter? And he asked positive and negative. So with a past life, what should we make of it? Does it influence our life today?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I like the ring of that, and if the listener would not mind, I think that title has a very, very good ring to it. Past lives matter. So,
yes,
with the listener's permission, I think
go ahead and use that.
Something here.
I see T-shirts coming out of this. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, okay. So, yes, absolutely. Past lives do matter because every bit of you is your past lives and everything you've learned through the ages as well. So, just as past lives matter, so do you matter in everything that you do. Everything that you do is, of course, positive and negative, are alterations to what you have done, accumulated, and learned in your past. Positive and negative are directions of influence, much like truth and deception, for example, but not good or evil. The infinite does not consider anything as bad or counterproductive. Only truth or ignorance is important. Or shall we say grades of intelligence. We all learn from the past in order to build the future. So yes, indeed, great statement by the listener. Past lives do matter.
And if
I'm
you
going to use that.
Well, yeah, and I think you should, because it gets right to the point. And there are several other questions we'll have during the course of the program and on past lives. So I'd love to ask a couple of follow-ups, but listeners already have, and we'll get to those during the course of the program. Second question, do children remember past lives? And if so, how does that happen? And what can we do to encourage and deal with it?
Well, I myself, I remember when I was just a baby, just weeks old, I remember awakening really consciously for the first time and seeing a vision of who I had been in my past life. And I had a knack for English from birth. I understood it. I could almost speak it. I had continuous visions of what this past life had been all through my childhood. But until it really dawned on me that there were past lives, it didn't really sink in.
Now, you were living in Cuba at the time?
Yes, I was living in Cuba.
So speaking Spanish, when you say you had an understanding of English, that's out of the ordinary because that wasn't the language spoken where you were.
That's right. And if you spoke Norte Americano, oh boy, you were in trouble.
Yes.
So both from a reincarnation point of view and English, taboo down there. But So I can vouch for that from the earliest of ages, and especially with the mention of children. On other worlds, people are taught universal laws and the concepts of energy from birth. Then they're left to confidently analyze themselves rather than be entertained by fairy tales. So, although parables do play a huge part in the absorption of wisdom, we have to remember that what we do is what we wear.
Oh.
I played a violin and fixed a watch at age 2, for example. Where did that come from? And by the way, the person who listened to me was the first chair violinist of the Havana Symphonic Orchestra. It was my godfather. And I played for him Mozart's Minuet in G at age 2. Had never heard it. Now, at times, we're the ones, not children, that need encouragement to have these recalls. So children, I can vouch for it. Children do have that knack. They are born with it. We're the ones that stifle it. Our acts influence child confidence, but sometimes we don't have that aptitude or that valor necessary to face what we are even today. We lie to ourselves, and that's one issue. So much more so what we were in the past by comparing how much we deny the present. So in that case, much less, how can we help a child that comes reincarnation ready, fresh from these higher plane schools? We are stifling children much the same way that we stifle ourselves. We're the ones that need help, not really children.
All the information we talk about on the program you can find at several websites. Robert's website is rgaetan, GAETAN.com. Also, UnariusUnited.com has a lot of great information there as well. And you can read the Legacy series, which many people are doing. It's available, of course, at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, information at Robert's website, and get more information. And if you can't remember all of that, if you're traveling, go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and you can link on to get the information. All of the past programs are available at iTunes. Again, you can link on to that from our website. Video renditions of the program available at YouTube, and you can link on directly by going to our website. Another question, I'm totally fascinated by the possibility of reincarnation. What is the best way to begin the study of my past? And we get this question often, okay, you have my interest now. I'd like to explore this. What do I do next?
By knowing the present, you know the past. It's pretty much that simple. You have to crawl before you walk, and people want to walk into the reincarnation scene and from overnight be able, oh, I saw that life in a vision, and I was so and so. A lot of people do that, and that's not the way to approach it. You first have to know yourself, so you can tell an erroneous calculation of someone you may have been or something you did from the present. You know, you live with a lot of guilt, a lot of assumptions, a lot of wrong concepts. So you got to start from scratch. Study the science of life. It will give you wisdom to identify your thoughts and learn how the infinite works. And then your past will come to you when the time is ready. Whenever you get an inkling of an emotion or a feeling, however hidden it may be, it's a step forward from plowing the road, cleaning the surface so you can see beneath it. You are your past, every desire, every talent, every thought, every emotion. Legacy and Unarius United provide these tools and examples of what to do. Don't go looking for your past. It comes to you enough because it is you.
And what's interesting in listening to you through all of these programs we've done, you are really knowledgeable as anybody in this particular topic, yet I get the impression you're still a student. What you never stop learning.
I never will. The moment that I stop studying and learning is what I would call ditching school. And I don't think I'm ever going to do that Every day I discover new things. I discover new past instances, even events within the same past life. I'll get a flash of, oh, I didn't see this part of that past life. It just goes on and on and on.
Robert Maxxim, our guest on the program. That's Maxxin. I-M. Information available at his website, argaton.com, as well as unariusunited.com, and go to our website as well. Just to finish on that and go on to the next question, I think what you were saying is don't just do sort of a cursory look at this topic like, oh, I was a member of Parliament back in the early 1900s, and have a couple of fun. It's more serious than that, isn't it? It's not a parlor game we're talking about here.
You can actually harm yourself more by playing with the concept rather than living it as you should, as the infinite has designed for you to do. So first, learn of the infinite. Be serious about it because your evolution depends on it. And once you go down this road and begin to see it for yourself, then you will really realize, gosh, I've been wasting my time. I should have done this from birth, from a million years ago. I should have really done this.
Robert Maxxim, our guest on This Week in America. The next question, what are the signs your soul has been reincarnated? Are there signs that we should be looking for?
Good question. Think about habits. Think about knowledge, interests, early inclinations and behavior from childhood. These are things that you carry over. Childhood best describes your past before mundane elements contaminate and inject variance into your consciousness. So consider this. Because a lot of people believe that the flesh is the life and what stores information. But this is something that I was looking into a while ago, and this is interesting information. The brain has the equivalent power of a 20-watt light bulb. And some people less than that, depends on whether they paid their light bill or not.
Exactly, yes.
But, some light bulbs like mine are perhaps not the brightest. But now, I'm into computer science, so I did this. I said, based on an 8-bit byte, and dividing that across all the brain cells that we have, I was shocked to know that the brain has the equivalent digital storage capacity of a 20 gigabyte hard drive. That's not much, is it?
No, not at all.
Even your telephone SIM card has more storage than that. Now, people say, no, it's in the DNA because, we have so many genes and what have you. Well, guess what? DNA has 22,000 genes. That's not much storage either. So, folks, DNA and the brain, that's not the seat of experience. Here's a perfect scientific watered down of it. What the body does is it buffers intelligence. It acts as a transceiver between this environment and your spiritual environment. The proof is in the atom itself. Just concentrate on what an atom is and what it does, and then this will begin to make sense to you. That should answer a few concerns. So the body is nothing more than a machine. And if you look at the amount of space that exists within the body itself, between atoms, you see the body's solid. I'm going to guesstimate that 1/36,000th or 1 to 36,000 is the ratio of mass in this body. I mean, if it were completely solid, it would be 100%. But because of space between atoms, it is actually 1/36,000th of a percent. There's nothing there, folks. Nothing.
That's a really interesting way to look at that, an interesting perspective. And a lot of the concepts that Robert talks about, you'll find in the Legacy series. It's written in novel form. It goes through so many of the topics that we talk about on the program. We're doing listener questions, viewer questions. If you have any, go to the website, thisweekinamerica.us, comments. You can ask a question for Robert. Go to Robert's website, rgaetan.com, and do the same. Here's an interesting question. We're back to Bible now. We usually end up back with Bible and religion, a couple of those questions. I'm struggling to rationalize my belief in reincarnation with my religious faith. I realize the Bible has multiple shades of meaning depending on the interpretation. How can I use Scripture to make my case to friends who believe it is a sin to even consider?
Oh, boy.
Pretty heavy question, yeah.
Oh, boy. I've had that thrown at me a million times.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And it's a great question. I think everybody in any religious field will one day or another come across this question. And the answer will be different to everyone. But all I can say is that the majority of your people are stuck in that flypaper. They don't know how to walk out of it. There's a couple of issues there. One, the reader is correct. A lot of interpretations. And number two, there's that persecution of faith. And number three is making the case to others, either to convince or to deny an attack. So we have to think about how we approach this. I would say no one, Rick, no one has the right to force, frighten, evangelize, accuse, or judge anyone's beliefs or efforts. That is against universal law, especially when the individuals haven't a clue what the true biblical sources are. So, I mean, I could be talking to someone until they're blue in the face. You know, here's the original, here's what it says, and they're holding on to this other version, and you know, out of fear of being wrong, of not having salvation, they better hold on to this book. And that's what I have found out. People are scared to death of hearing anything that is not in this version. That's how much they have been bombarded, that they cannot leave behind this version. I have a lot of sadness when it comes to people who are just so trapped in this. But if there is any chance of penetrating through that fear to that individual, and again, don't believe me, but go look for yourself. There are volumes, Rick, volumes of biblical evidence that exists on the subject, volumes. But I divulge it only when I am asked out of respect, and only when legitimate openness and readiness is shown. Otherwise, people can intensify the urge to oppose evidence out of that fear, fight back regardless of whatever error they're due, basically because of commitment and misplaced hopes. Universal law prohibits me from evangelizing or converting. I will never do that. But I must be fully qualified to answer when confronted. The best option is to let people find their own answers, Rick, at their own pace, without any fear of retribution or mockery. And let me stress again the importance of reading original manuscript rather than a sanctioned scripture. In my previous radio interview, I gave biblical references to reincarnation using the same Bible, the same version.
Yes, and you walked us through this step by step.
Yeah, and many hold on to it to be legit. But you know what? It's not. It's not legit. You'll find much more in Legacy about that, including quotes on reincarnation from the Christian founders. You can't get any better than that. So let me encourage all and everyone listening to this message not to be afraid, not to be held back, not to be pressed by a leadership, but to go out and research and dig up the evidence. Don't be afraid to do so. That's what God wants us to do. Don't accept the norm. Don't say it isn't so. Don't say it's a sin or forbidden. Don't trust what you've been told or what you picked up from approved manuscripts. There's no such thing as an approved manuscript. It's either original or it's no good. So again, don't trust me either. The world has purposely been given limited information, folks. Honestly, my opinion, it's time we get beyond this and no longer accept that what we know today is sufficient to be saved. Let me rephrase that. It's time we get beyond the fact that we should no longer accept that what we know and believe in is sufficient to be saved, because it's not. You know, you asked the question a little while ago, have I stopped learning? Will I ever stop learning? No, I will never stop learning. There is no such thing as a point where you are saved. Never.
And Robert talked about past interviews. You'll find those at the website thisweekinamerica.us, the iTunes and the YouTube versions of that. It's fascinating. The Legacy series he talks about is his work. It's written in novel form. Many, again, the issues that we're talking about, you will find laid out for you in the Legacy series. It's a fascinating story. It's a great read, and then you realize this is all based on true experiences. It's the Legacy series. Next question, the listener says, I have had sleep problems for years and doctors have been unable to treat. Nothing seems to work. Is it possible I'm dealing with a past life issue?
Oh, goodness.
You're absorbing that, I can tell. Is it possible?
Yeah.
Is it possible?
I'm having, well, two things. One, my own experiences and trying to feel what this individual has gone through. I can say without doubt it's a big yes. Everything is the past, no exceptions. But at times we do have physiological situations that will reinforce dreams like this, including diets, stress, and habits. But these are also influenced by the past, so there's no escaping the past. Even if it's physiological, it came from the past. So if you go to the Nurse United site, begin using the self-mastery chart. That's where I would start. On my website, rgaetan.com, go to the Science tab and read and adapt the health topics that I have mentioned there. Those health topics have been dictated by beings from Alpha Centauri, and it's a very important health message for everyone. By clearing the body, you're also clearing the mind, so that's important too. Apply these contents, say, for a month, and then report results back on the next program. Or contact me through my website. I'll be glad to help. But do study the science of life and take very seriously the lead from Bill Solomon's challenges that are described in Legacy. If anybody had bad dreams, was Bill Solomon. And they were my dreams, and I help explain why I had them. And that can be kind of a lead for others to follow.
Once again, so much in the Legacy series available at the websites. You can get information on all of that at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Just to take a few seconds on that. So basically what you're saying is, if these are caused by past lives, really the only way, medication's not going to take care of the problem. You need, confrontation? You need to go back, confront the past, and deal with that before you're going to be able to soundly sleep for 7 hours.
Exactly. Medication is not going to cure the problem. It's only going to sedate the problem. And when you sedate the problem, you can't figure out what it is because you put it to sleep. You blocked it. No, you want to face it directly and spend time analyzing it, analyzing every feeling until you figure out what it is. Don't block it. Don't sedate it. Face it.
Information at the websites. You'll find those by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Time always goes by way too quick. Like that's a big surprise. Here's a question that's interesting. We talk about this a lot. We throw the term soul out there. I throw the term soul out there. The question is a good one. When you die, how does your soul die? Does your soul die, or does it go to another body in another life?
Great question. The answer is the soul never dies. Never does consciousness. There's no such thing as consciousness going to sleep and then waking up in another body. Doesn't happen. And I am proof of that. I've had several experiences. I've had 2 death experiences in this life. So I can tell you exactly what it feels like, and there's no discontinuity. Now, consciousness, it travels up and down dimensions, and from one body to the next, according to preset cycles that your higher self arranges for you. And these preset cycles are experiences, lessons that you have to learn in order to evolve. Now, if we compare the soul or the consciousness with a multi-floor skyrise building, we could say that the consciousness is the elevator. So imagine that the soul is kind of like a pancake stack. It's a multi-dimensional intelligence energy collector made up of countless layers of experience or floors. Every floor that you step in, or every pancake you go to, you have an experience there. You feed that energy section of yourself. Just as you learn how to draw letters in lower school grades, like kindergarten, you have to trace the G, trace the P.
Yes.
And now compare that with advanced poetry in higher grades. Let's say you're a master's, trying to get a master's in poetry in college or university. The soul has the same type of layers from kindergarten to master's school. Layers of experience that are acquired between these low and high dimensional floors. They're all linked together by the higher or the superconscious self at the top. And just as you teach other people in a class what you learn in higher grades, consciousness educates, it comes down and it educates the lower floors what it learned in higher ones. It's the same thing. The physical level in that process we call reincarnation. I like to call it the basement, but
interesting. Yes.
Yeah. Now let's go back and think that the body is nothing more than a computer. It's a machine that serves the soul's consciousness in this dimension. It adapts that consciousness to experience this dimension temporarily. It reincarnates in this machine to educate the lower floor, the lower part of your soul, and help kick it upwards. But sometimes people don't necessarily go up, they go down. And I could bring a lot of sad stories. There's one in the news right now from Nevada. I don't even want to mention it. It was a terrible thing. So all I can say is when school is over in this body, consciousness will return to a higher intelligence floor to learn some more, and then come back to pass that knowledge on to the soul's lower self. Along the way, consciousness also practices what it has learned through other intelligence floor between up and down. So your consciousness is the educator of your soul, not only here in this body or in this basement, but first, second, third, fourth, fifth floor, all the floors that you visit along your spiritual evolution.
It's a very complete answer, and I hope that answers the question for the listener. Again, if you have questions, just direct them through our website, thisweekinamerica.us, or Robert's website, rgaetan.com. You can link on to both those by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Question, how do you really know you have had past lives? And then the second part of that, are you relying solely on dreams? And I don't want to necessarily interpret what he's saying, but I think it's, I'm dreaming something. How do I know it's a dream or it's a past life, a message that's coming back to me?
Mm-hmm. I was there. I was there for how many years until I finally figured it out? So how, I think that the question is, how can I be sure? What is that confidence factor? What gives me that confidence? Well, you have to discover this for yourself. And the process of discovery is different for everyone. So there's no one formula, be it a dream or vivid realizations. I have both. I have a vivid realization and I have dreams. And everybody does too, but people don't pay attention. It's best when you can corroborate information you didn't have before. Here's an example. So I played Minuet in G by Mozart at age 2. Where did I get that from? Where did I get the experience to locate my fingers on the string board and be able to properly find the notes and the bowing, okay, and the phrasing?
Yes.
Where did I learn that at age 2? Where did I get it from? Well, while I was writing Legacy episode 3, which is going to be coming up pretty soon, in that story, I was basically attuned. I was out of it, and Maylen all of a sudden said in the story, by the way, you were Giuseppe Valentini. What? Giuseppe Valentini? Who's Giuseppe Valentini? I had no idea.
Yes.
And it took me months to find out who this individual was. So that was a fact that I had before I knew who this person was. Then I had dreams and confirmation. I had, for years, Rick, I had listened to Giuseppe's symphonies in my head, and I didn't know who they were. Giuseppe Valentini was not very well known, but he actually broke ice to help create the classical and romantic period in Europe. So that was complete confirmation. I had the music background, I had the music in my head, I had the name given to me, I had dreams where I actually saw his life, and then I was able to confirm it in Wikipedia. So again, I will go to great length to find out that I can confirm this stuff. I just don't believe because I see it, I have to confirm it.
Well, and we've talked about that so many times. You were a skeptic in the beginning. So what you're talking about is not something that you went to a seminar one time and somebody said something and you bought it and you're out there now passing it along. You were skeptical. This comes from literally decades of research. The next question sort of ties into what you were just talking about there. We're talking about past lives and the difference between that, if there is a difference between that and dreams. Also, how do you know who you were in the past? And it's an interesting concept. Talk about that, because I'm sure people are like, wow, I would love to figure out who I am. And I guess what you're saying is there are a lot of signals, a lot of dots, and you need to connect those dots to interpret who you were?
Well, I have not been in any hurry to find out. I wait for my higher self at the right time to show it to me. And there are many ways where they're shown. It can be shown in something that I'm doing. It can be shown in a dream. It can be something that I'm talking about, and then all of a sudden something will come out of the blue, and then I'll go research all of that. I keep that list from Nourish United very handy, and I write down all these notes every day, and I go back, and I research everything. There have been some times, Rick, where I have heard the name out loud mentioned to me, and Giuseppe Valentini was such example. I have heard other names, but it's not really important to know who you were. It's important to know who you are and what role your past plays in your present and in your future evolution.
Robert Maxxim, our guest on This Week in America, Maxxim. His website is rgaetan, rgaetan.com. The other website he mentioned, unariusunited.com. Information, of course, at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Question now, and we've been dealing with some pretty heavy issues here. Here comes, we get the aliens. People are fascinated by this whole alien concept.
Yeah.
Do aliens visit us, and for what purpose?
Oh, well, hey, we're all aliens, so why do we visit ourselves?
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, we all have our roots elsewhere. That's the first thing we need to remember. But coming more to recent time interest, yes, we are under the watchful eye of countless beings. Some are spiritual, some are physical. There is, of course, a great organization called the White Brotherhood or Unarius that helps instruct and evolve receptive minds on this world. Many of us do attend these Unarius centers upon death, and that's where we have a lot of the talents coming to this world, like Einstein and Mozart. They come preconditioned from these worlds with information that they have to practice on this world. So we don't interfere, but work with those who agreed to be born. I mean, if we are actually, let's see, how can I express that? When our being comes to deliver what they have learned, sometimes this world interferes with the task that they're trying to carry out, and some part of their work may not be entirely positive. Some of it may be entirely positive. So it all depends. Once you bring that information into this world, you're exposed to everything. So sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes it ends up going right. But that's the evolution of this world. I have done things that are not exactly perfect, but it has served as a lesson for me, as well as it has served a lesson for many that have come. But it's important to note that aliens that visit us, we have to be very careful what we follow after. Because if they do not respect the universal law and the fact that there should be no interference with anyone, with any teaching, with any devotion, with any mission that we presently have, we should stay away from aliens that do that.
Robert Maxxim, our guest on This Week in America. The website he was referring to, unariusunited.com. I'm going to try to get in a couple more questions in the expanded version of the program we're doing today. This one is, when you visit them, and you've talked before about the visits, is it in the past or is it in the future?
Both. It's hard to explain, because time and space are only physical aspects and don't really apply to higher dimensional worlds. And when you have a vision, you're not really here. You are in another time-space dimension. Your true self, your spiritual self, operates in a timeless dimension. But your event horizon in this dimension is an incidence of time within infinite totality. It's hard to explain, but imagine being a bubble. Okay, and this bubble, it has a sequential track to it, right? Time is going sequential.
Right.
But around it, imagine that there's these concentric rings of time and space, and this event here in this physical might be related to a spiritual event over here, or maybe over here, or maybe down here. Really, it doesn't matter, and that's hard for us to conceive. But that's the way that energy works. Energy is infinite, and that means the past, present, and future are not sequential. So were it not the case, how could you have a viewing of future events? Think about that one.
Well, I am. You hit me with that one, and I've got all these thoughts going through my mind. And that another question that ties in with that is, are you able to see the future? So many people will listen and go, this is great because he may know what's going to happen. Address that. Are you able to see the future? And I think you're saying, I don't even know what the future is, because it's there are no time constraints when you have the vision.
I think I mentioned some of that on the last radio show, and I don't ask for it. I'm not involved in setting it up. But I have been shown several future events, which I try not to get too much into. Uh, they're shown to me for a purpose. Sometimes I know why. Sometimes it's a test. Sometimes I don't know. But I write it down and I remember until it happens. I can share one real quick.
Yes, do.
Okay, I had a dream 2 weeks ago where I was going to incur damage to my left eye. That was 2 weeks ago. And I said, uh-oh, something's coming. Well, last Friday, I started losing sight on my left eye. By Saturday, it was so cloudy I couldn't even see, and I was seeing spots of light, and I got worried. But I put the worry aside, and I said, it's happening because it happened before. This is a repercussion. Of course, my dieting, everything plays a role, but this is a repercussion. So I went to the doctor on Monday. He said, oh, you had a stroke. So, okay, looks pretty serious. We have to send you to a specialist. They took photographs. They proved it. So after I came out of the doctor's office, I said, I've got to figure this out. And when I least expected it, I began to see visions of things that were done to my eyes in the past. Plucking them out, a spear being thrown into my left eye, being burnt alive, being put fire right into the eyeball. I mean, all kinds of experiences. And 24 hours later, this morning, I went back for another test. Guess what? The eye is already 90% better.
So much for the stroke theory that you weren't going to accept because you thought maybe you could trace it back and find out exactly what happened to your eye.
And that's what I did. And the recognition itself was sufficient to allow that channel, which a lot of people call it chakra, to be cleared up, and for that higher energy to come in and make corrections to this physical anomaly, all the way from the top down. Just fix all these frequencies until it gets down to this dimension, and voila, I have the doctor's pictures to prove it. I will be putting them on Facebook and on my website so people can see before and after, 24 hours apart.
What is the reaction in a case like that from the medical community? I mean, you've got a doctor that says, here's what happened, here's my proof, this is what we need to do. You go back and say, I'm not quite sure that that's accurate. Go ahead and look at it again. And suddenly he realizes it wasn't the stroke, a stroke that he really was pretty firm in his diagnosis before. What was his reaction?
Well, it's like, well, I don't know. It got better on its own.
Yeah, right.
One picture shows a blockage on the return vein. Your retina is fed with blood, right? But when it's fed with blood, it has to be a return back out. We call it a return back to the heart. Well, that vein supposedly was blocked. And supposedly it was caused by the stroke. And the picture shows right there the blockage. Today, it shows that there's actually flow going through there. Now, how can a little tiny vein with a huge blockage all of a sudden start emitting again?
That's just fascinating. We talked a little bit about that as we were getting started here, because you just come from the doctor's office. And first of all, I'm glad the eye is okay, and you're getting most of 90% of the vision is already restored in the eye.
Yes.
So that's perfect. So, and it's something you weren't going to accept the diagnosis. You thought something else was at play here. Unfortunately, we're out of time, even with the expanded program. But we've got much more to talk about the next time, and we encourage your participation. It's very simple to do. If you've got a question, a comment, please get it to us. You can do it one of two ways. You can go to Robert's website, rgaetan, RGAETAN.com. You can go to UnariusUnited.com. You can follow Robert as well on Facebook. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and do one of two things. You can submit a question by going to comments, and I will get that and pass it along to Robert, and we'll talk about it. In addition, you can link on directly to the two websites I mentioned for Robert, so you can get all the information that way as well. All the issues that we're talking about, all the various topics on the program tonight are discussed in length through Robert's past lives in novel form in the Legacy series. And Robert will be back in about a month on another program. Robert, it is always a pleasure to have you with us on the program. I'm sure you probably feel a little exhausted after going. There were some heavy questions that we started off with today. We hit pretty hard on the religion aspect of it. And remember, you can pick up your Do Past Lives Matter T-shirt by going to our website as well. I like that. We've got a slogan here for the program now. Do Past Lives Matter? And the question is, yes, they do. And you can find out all that information at Robert's website. Thank you once again for being with us. We will be back in a couple of weeks with more questions. And if you're watching, listening, make sure you get those questions to us, and Robert will answer on the air. Robert, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks. And thanks for all the listeners who have participated.
And they really have some challenging questions there, and we have more that we'll get to next time, and hopefully yours will be among them. You're listening to This Week in America online, thisweekinamerica.us. Stay tuned. We're coming right back after these messages.